It's been a couple hundred miles and a couple months since I made my introduction ICAN P9 video, and I wanted to give you guys an update and wanted to ask you guys a couple questions. So let's start with the update. The bike's been handling great. I haven't had any major issues with it. There's been a couple times where the bearing bolts have come a little bit loose around this area, especially the main pivot one. And so I've had to retighten that, so I recommend you guys check that if you guys are deciding to build something like this. Just every once in a while give it a good tug or apply a decent amount of thread lock in there. I've been reluctant to apply some thread lock just because of my experience with it. Sometimes it can get gunked up in there and it's quite difficult to extract the bolt when you're gonna go maintenance the bearings. So I wanted to ask you guys, what's been your experience with purchasing parts, especially overseas, especially with the lack of components that we can find now here in the States because of the pandemic. And again, this is for the viewers that live here in the States. I've recently had my I recently started having problems with shifting in the back. And for the love of God, I couldn't figure out what it was. My index was fine. I went ahead and changed the chain, changed the cable, changed even the derailleur hanger, and still had issues. Number 3 and 4 gear kept jumping up and down, and I couldn't figure out what it was. My index was fine, everything was fine. Even took it to a bike shop, and they couldn't figure out what it was. I even thought and considered things like maybe a crack or misalignment in the rear triangle. Sometimes a loose pivot will cause the rear triangle to move sideways, and that could cause it to jump. But it was happening specifically on the, I guess, middle gears. I've been running a 10-speed cassette in the back. It's the Advent X, and so far it's been working great. But I gotta say, it's only been about 600 miles, or about 600 miles, 500 or 600 miles that I have on that rear cassette and derailleur, the whole drivetrain as a matter of fact. And you know, it was actually quite odd that it started giving me problems. So closer inspection, I figure out what it was. It turned out to be the cassette. I went ahead and actually measured the gap in between each of the teeth of the rear cassette with a digital caliper, and everything seemed fine. Nothing was bent, nothing was out of place. But upon closer inspection under a microscope, I know, putting a bike under a microscope. But yeah, I have access to a microscope, especially a stereo microscope. And upon closer inspection, I figure out what it was. And I'll be linking a video down below as to my findings. And it's just sometimes those little small things can actually cause problems and give you problems and headaches that take a while to figure out. So back to the story is, eventually I intend to put another cassette in the back. But meanwhile, I went ahead and turned the bike into a single speed. I haven't had much time to ride this up here around the neighborhood. I haven't taken it out to the trails. So I wanted to ask you guys, what's been your experience so far with getting parts overseas or lack of parts, especially here, like I said, in the States. Cassettes, for example, this Advent X cassette is on back order right now, so I'm having to wait a couple weeks until I can order it. And even then, there's no guarantee that you're gonna be able to order one, because you know, if you're not there, then it could run out. It can actually go back on back order. So that, along with other things like brake pads and you know, just regular components that you normally were able to find prior to the pandemic, and now they're scarce or prices have significantly gone up. So I wanted to ask you guys how you guys are going around that. Are you guys still ordering things from directly from AliExpress or other Chinese direct-to-consumer websites, or is there any local stores, or what are you guys doing? Are you guys doing something as drastic as turning your bike into a single speed because of the lack of components? And then I say drastic, I used to race and compete in single speed. Of course, it was a hardtail, it was a lot lighter than this. I've never done anything like this, like turn it an enduro or aggressive trail bike into a single speed. So but yeah, it's basically what I can do right now to get out there and ride. We started to have really nice weather recently down here in the south. The last couple months have been, boy, brutal. It's been just rain and cold and more rain and cold, and the trails have been closed and it's just muddy. So anything to get out there and start riding, you know, even if it takes putting a beating down on my legs by hauling this 30-pound plus bike with a single speed gearing on the back just to be out there on the trails. And I gotta say, it's not that bad. Trying it around my backyard, it's not that bad. It's pretty flat back here, but you know, I have a 20 in the back and a 30 in the front, and it's pretty decent. It's decent enough where you can give your gears to actually pull a wheelie, so you get enough torque there. The actual tensioner that you see, it looks like a derailleur, but it's not. It's actually a Shimano Alphine. It's about 20 bucks or so. I've used it before on races. I haven't had any problems with it. No drop chains or anything like that. So I intend to use it at least until I can get a cassette, or you know, maybe for the duration of most of the summer, because I've gained a good 20 pounds or so, and so there's no easier way to lose them than with something like this. And there are also limiting factors to it, like if you're in a flat area, you're riding in a group, you're definitely going to be left behind. But come around to those climbs and you'll probably be sipping past whoever you're riding with, just because of the amount of weight that you can take off the bike. Not just the weight, it's more lively. The rear suspension feels less constricted. There's less unsprung mass in the back. You don't have to worry about having a shifter or a cable and derailleur and a cassette. So it's just a temporarily measure until I can get some parts, or until I lose a good 20 pounds. Whatever comes first. Being that the parts are so scarce, it's probably going to be the weight before I can get the parts. But just wanted to give you guys that update on, ask you guys on what problems are you guys running out there. What are the components that you guys are looking for, and it's really hard to come by, or they're too expensive or out of reach. So just put them down below. Ask any questions if you guys have in regards to the frame. I just want to emphasize that it's been great. I haven't had any problems really with it, and I recommend it. So far, if I was to break this frame, I will probably order another one of the same. If given that it's still under warranty, ICAN does give you 2-year warranty. I haven't run into anybody that has actually had to replace the bike under warranty, so I don't know what the process will be like. Hopefully they'll watch in this video and they can comment below. But yeah, if I was to break this bike, I would probably purchase the same bike over. It's that much fun, and given what I pay for it and the miles that I gotten out of it, I will go ahead and probably order the same bike all over again. So if you guys have any questions, like I said, just put them down below. More than happy to answer it for you guys. Till then.